make the theme here Christianity and psychological health, right? So the question will be this. These will be the questions together. One of my readers asked whether or not you found that your faith, what was the interaction between your faith and your mental illness, is as both a help and as an antagonism for it. Related to that, would you be willing to condemn reparative therapy that tries to teach gay kids to be straight? Thirdly, I mean, very recently, your last most traumatic episode was, I believe, a year ago. You had your worst incidents, and then finally, along all of these lines, I guess the fundamental question is: are you trying to understand your homosexuality as still something inherently good and a gift from God that you need to come to terms with in a different way than consummation? Maybe through sublimations, maybe as an obstacle for growth or something? Or are you seeing it as an inherently sinful part of yourself to be expunged? So how do these things about how you find a mental balance, whether or not you would approve of other people taking measures to try and become straight, what is it, and how all of this and your general issues with depression and mental illness, how does this all combine for a picture of the interaction between your faith and your well-being psychologically?
Well, first on the question of faith and psychology, I think that the best way of putting it would probably be to say that my faith at its best or deepest has been and remains a help in terms of my psychological health. My faith at its most naive and superficial is a hindrance. And I think that naive, superficial level of faith has an idolatrous element that really needs to be expunged. This way of
idolizing what?
Idolizing a God that's too too easy in one sense, but too difficult in another sense. Too easy in the sense of being too like other sort of human authority figures, and difficult in the sense of being super ego-like in the way that those figures can sometimes be. I think getting to a deeper level of faith that acknowledges that I'm loved by God, period, without qualification, and that I've been made by God, so that whatever is essential to me, to who I am, comes from God and is good and blessed and loved. And that aspects of myself that need to change, selfishness, injustice, lovelessness, and so forth, are deficiencies that God is eager to help me to fulfill, you could say. But that God is not an entity that stands outside me and is waiting critically for me to pull myself together and sort of grumbling in the process. God is within me and around me as love, and helping me to become love. Also, I found that in the course of, I mean, I've been in therapy before in various degrees, but for the last year or so, it's been in a fairly intensive way. And I'm constantly noticing parallels between what I take to be the best of contemporary psychotherapeutic practice, because I have a very good psychologist, and the tradition of the Desert Fathers. There are constantly occasions where my therapist will be telling me something and I'll think, gosh, that's just like what I read in Evagrius Ponticus or the Sayings of the Fathers or something. This whole sense of being aware of your thoughts and their direction and being prepared to arrest them early on before they start moving in a toxic sort of direction. It's very much a part of the desert and of the wider monastic tradition.
Sounds like the Stoics.
In some ways, yeah, probably influenced by them. So I think basically my faith has been a help. The second thing you asked about was faith and mental health and
reparative therapy. Would you be willing to condemn that? The attempt to try and
yeah.
make kids straight.
I think condemn is probably too strong a word. I would certainly be strongly critical of it. I can't imagine it being helpful in my own case. But I'm not sure we understand the phenomenon that it's trying to deal with, namely the phenomenon of queerness, deeply enough to say whether it's a good thing or not. I'm inclined to say it's not a good thing. It strikes me as fundamentally destructive. But I recognize the possibility that for some people, gay kind of desires at one point in their life, maybe some gay behavior at one point in their life, might actually represent something temporary that they'll move beyond. But I don't think one can expect that that's going to be the case for most people with those desires. So I think setting up as paradigmatic the idea that if you have these desires, they're an illness to be cured is certainly a mistake that I would condemn. But recognizing that these desires can play a complicated role in somebody's life and might not be with you for all of your life, might not be part of who you most deeply are, that's probably true for some people. So using it as a kind of therapeutic paradigm, I think, is not a good thing. Recognizing the inherent complexity of this whole question of orientation, I think, is a good thing.